Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radhe, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टुकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः. So I think we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 15, I think text 25. We are covering verses from text 21 to the end of the chapter, which is text 28. But we'll be chanting text 25 first. So we'll just use that for reading. Ayam hi dehino deho द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मकः देहिनो विविध क्लेश संतापकृदुदाहृतः अयं हि देहिनो देहो द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मनः मकः देहिनो विविध क्लेश संतापकृदुदाहृतः अयं हि देहिनो देहो द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मकः देहिनो विविध क्लेश संतापकृदुदाहृतः अयं हि देहिनो देहो द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मकः देहिनो विविध क्लेश संतापकृदुदाहृतः अयं हि देहिनो देवो द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मकः देहिनो विविध क्लेश संतापकृदुदाहृतः अयं हि देहिनो देवो द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मकः देहिनो विविध क्लेश संतापकृदुदाहृतः. Okay, we will read the transliteration. I am this, he, certainly, Dehinaha, of the living entity, Deha, body, Dravya, Jnana Kriyatmakaha, consisting of the material elements, the senses for acquiring knowledge, and the acting senses. Dehinaha, of the living entity, Vividha, various, Klesha, sufferings, Santapa, and of pains, Krit, the cause, Udahartaha, is declared. Translation is purported by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body, which is a combination of physical elements, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and the five senses for action along with the mind. Through the mind, the living entity suffers three kinds of tribulations: Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika, and Adhyatmika. Therefore, this body is a source of all miseries. Purport. In the fifth canto, fifth chapter and fourth shloka, while instructing his sons, Rishabhadeva said, Asanapi kleshada asadeha, the body, although temporary, is the cause of all miseries of material existence. As already discussed in the previous verse, the material creation is based on mental concoction. The mind sometimes induces us to think that if we purchase an automobile, we can enjoy the physical elements such as earth, water, air, and fire combined in forms of iron, plastic, petrol, and so on. Working with the five material elements, Panchabhutas, as well as our five knowledge gathering senses like the eyes, ears, the tongue, and our five active senses like the hands and legs, we get involved in the material conditions. Therefore, we are subjected to the tribulations known as Adhyatmika, Adi Daivika, and Adi Bhautika. The mind is the center because the mind creates all these things. As soon as the material object is struck, however, the mind is affected and we suffer. For example, with the material elements, the working senses, and the knowledge gathering senses, we create a very nice car. And when the car is accidentally smashed in a collision, the mind suffers. And through the mind, the living entity suffers. The fact is that the living entity, while concocting with the mind, creates the material condition. Because matter is destructible, through the material condition, the living entity suffers. Otherwise, the living entity is detached from all material conditions. When one comes to the Brahman platform, the platform of spiritual life, fully understanding that he is a spiritual soul, Ham Brahmasmi, he is no longer affected by lamentation or hankering. As Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma no sochati na kankshati. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, Shloka 7, the Lord says, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasa sasthan indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragments. Due to the conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. The living entity is actual part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is unaffected by material conditions. But because the mind, manha, is affected, the senses are affected, and the living entity struggles for existence within this material world. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. So actually we can see that in this previous shlokas itself that Chitraketu is actually very pained on losing his son. And Narada comes and explains actually the whole purpose of understanding the bodily concept that we are not the body, we are a spirit soul. So whenever matter comes in contact, as Jivatma, as Sachitananda Vigraha, as Krishna, as we are part and parcel of him. But when we come in contact with material senses, so like the knowledge gathering senses, the senses which we use to do activity, the mind which comes, these are all binded together. And it is binded because of karma. Just as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one takes birth in a particular family wherever based on their past and prayas karma. So similarly, Adhyatmika klesha, actually these three kleshas we call or called tapatrayams. They are three, and tapam means that which can give heat or suffering also. They are three in kind. Adhyatmika klesha, Adi Bhautika klesha, and Adi Devika klesha. Adhyatmika klesha are those which are miseries or reactions caused by our own actions when we see something, when we hear something or we do an activity, we may get hurt. These are called adhyatmika klesha. Adi bhautika klesha are those which are suffering caused by our interaction when we live in here in this earth, in Bhulokam, and we are interacting with other people. Could be in our day-to-day life, in a particular family we are born, we interact with them, they have their adhyatmika klesha. So with that interaction we get adi bhautika klesha and adi daivika klesha, that which is caused due to other higher living entities who are in higher positions like devatas and adi devatas. You can say Indra, Varuna, other planets which are present, moon, sun, earth, everything, we are all living in this. Earth gets earthquake, there are sometimes fires which happen. So these are all called adi daivika klesha. So based on one's karma, where one is located, and the interaction of their past prarabdha karma and some which is sanchita karma, all these kind of miseries happen in this material universe. So how we can get out of it is first to understand that, as Prabhupada said in the purport, is athato brahma jigyaso, and we are not the spirit soul. So as he says, mame vamse jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha, that all living entities are Krishna's parts and parcel. But because of our conditioning, so how question is many times asked is, how is karma formed? It is formed eternally because we are eternally present. The moment we come to desire with material universe, immediately karma is formed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually writes that there are anartha nivritis of different kinds. So anartha nivriti means unfavorable activities. Unfavorable activities sometimes are those first order, are those which are actually undesirable or non-Brahmanical qualities. Could be meat eating, illicit activity, drinking alcohol. These are pure anartha nivriti. Then there is also sometimes anartha nivriti which can happen by actions of pious activity. How does pious activity cause? If you don't understand the principle, if you come to temple without washing your feet, if you come without taking a bath, you may do a pious activity. If someone goes to a spiritual place like a dham and thinks bad thoughts, that also you get anartha nivriti. This is how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes. Initial people may not realize. It does not mean one should not go to the temple, but one should be conscious enough to understand one should not incur karma. And that is what is important. Like today's Ekadashi. Why do we fast from grains and beans? If I were to explain in a very modern way, people will say in the ecological way today, we are being vegan, we believe in global warming because we want to reduce a carbon footprint. Ekadashi means reducing a karmic footprint. Actually, that is how you have to think. Actually, if you think very modernly, if you explain. So, why? Because grains and leaves, Papa Purusha came and said, everyone is doing pious activity. What is my job? So, one should understand that Adi Devika Klesha is not something which Krishna induces or suffering due to demigod. It is caused by our desire. It is caused by our karma and interaction. Sometimes there is Adi Bhautika Klesha, sometimes is miseries caused when we live in a particular place by people around us, and also sometimes in a country when we live. Sometimes that is a reaction if people are born in a particular country. It doesn't mean we look down, but this is the explanation which is given in Shastra to understand that different types of kleshams come. So these kleshas to reduce, that is why Ekadashi today is supposed to be very important day for not just Vaishnavas, actually anyone who wants to advance in spiritual life. Fasting on Ekadashi or thinking of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, whether doing spiritual activity, it is very important. So, actually in the Bhavishottara Puranam, there is a conversation between Dalbya Rishi and Pulastya Muni. He explains that actually with regard to the story for today's Sattila Ekadashi, as we know, that when spirit soul comes in contact with material energy, he becomes sinful and performs heinous activities. So how can we do purify ourselves? So obviously in this is the prescribed way of how can follow, if they can practically or not, at least by mental thought process. For Shattila Ekadashi, one should try to donate. Why is this Ekadashi named? Because sesame seeds are those which are used specifically for worship in Vedic principles, and dhanams or sacrifices we use. There are black sesame seeds and there are white or brown sesame seeds. Black sesame seeds are those which are used actually in Amavasya, or those when we do oblations to our Pitrus. And white and brown are used for actually when we do in fire sacrifice. So obviously one in Shattila Ekadashi can either bathe in the water mixed with sesame seeds. This is what Dalbya Muni says to Pulastya Rishi. Rub sesame paste, eat sesame seeds, give them in charity, and this is the thing. And of course, there is a wonderful conversation about when we do activity. How Adi Bhautika Klesha, I mean, this is a pastime where Lord Krishna narrates to Narada Muni that once Narada Muni asked actually Lord Krishna is how is observing Shattila Ekadashi, what is the benefit? So he described once there was a old Brahmana lady who worshipped me every day. She used to fast specifically on all different festivals, everything. And she used to selflessly serve with all devotion. Her austerities is, of course, naturally, if people are going to fast, you can be spiritually very fit, but there is also material body. So she became weak and she gave a lot of charity to dhanams. It is said that actually Dhanam, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, one can give in actually Sattva Gunam, in Rajas or Tamas. Different kinds of donations are present. How, where is a different question. But she used to give a lot of good donations. And yet spiritually, she used to also, though spiritually minded, she also used to help other people also. But the only difference was, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, she never offered to food to any Brahmanas or to other devatas. No demigods, or she never offered. So so Bhagavan Sri Krishna said, I obviously understood her devotional service and she became eligible to enter Sri Krishna's abode. So Lord Krishna came down personally and he disguised himself as a follower of Lord Shiva, complete with garlands. Followers of Shiva emulate him. Not that they are wrong or anything, they emulate him. Just like Vaishnavas, we wear tilaka. Those who are followers of Lord Shiva, they emulate him. So Lord Krishna disguised himself as a devotee of Lord Shiva with skulls and with a bhikshu patra, and he approached this lady and he said, please tell me, I have come here, I want to beg you for some alms. So obviously what this lady did was, she had some disdain, so she threw a pot of mud actually into the pot, which is very interesting. Now, and understanding her miserliness of this magnanimous lady, Lord Krishna returned back. See, this pastime itself shows, in context of today's shloka, is how Adi Daivika Klesha, disdain, one may not need to show respect, but disdain or disrespect to someone also causes klesham. Whether it is disdain or respect to a normal human being or to devatas or adi devatas who are far better situated than us. Why? Because Prabhupada once said, he was going on a flight. When you go on an airplane, when you're at 0 foot level, you can see everyone in the perspective of 5 feet, 6 feet, whatever height they are. As you keep going higher and higher, how objects become smaller and smaller. So Prabhupada said, when you see there, see how far we are. Just by 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers. If you go 77,000 yojanas, this is Bhulokam. If you go to Bhuvarloka, Maharloka, well, all other devatas and adi devatas are present. How small we are. How insignificant our position is actually. Our position is very insignificant. We think that we have become great But actually it is the principle which we say the frog in the well. The frog in the well thinks that he is the king of the ocean. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stresses that humility is very important. And that's why even Vishnunath Chakravarti Thakur writes that anartha nivritti, even by when we do pious activity, is very important to consciously know one should not commit offenses. So this lady was very pious, doing a lot of devotional service. But what did she do? First of all, Atiti Devo Bhava, a person came to ask for alms and she threw a pot of mud. That itself is an offense. We should not, yes, one can say we have to disguise and discriminate, but one should not judge people based. This is why they say that we should not judge people based on appearance or looks and all these things. This all causes actually karmic reaction. What to speak of offending other higher situated entities. So she came. Obviously, Lord Krishna decided this and he returned back. Eventually, this austere lady actually went back to spiritual world, discarding her earthly body. This itself is a great fact, because in normal material body, you cannot actually go back, as we said. So what it did is, when she went back to the spiritual world, he transformed this mud of blood into a very beautiful house for her. But the house is devoid of any items of food, objects, anything. So she approached Lord Krishna and said, I fasted on so many occasions, my body is weak, I worshipped and prayed you, but yet there is no food or wealth in my own new home. Janardana, she explained why. Then she said, you return home. She said, the wives of the devatas, the demigods, will visit you out of curiosity to see your new arrival. You know, it is said actually in the spiritual world that when a Jivatma goes back, actually all other Nitya Siddhas who are already present welcome actually the Jivatma who is going back actually. It is a welcoming ceremony. Why? Because we have been away from our spiritual home and father eternally for such a long time. So when we go back, there is a happiness and rejoicefulness actually. It is explained in different shlokams that whenever a Jivatma comes back, you know, when people do in a material sense, I can just give example. You know, here in college football, they do homecoming and all this stuff. Okay, people will understand. This is all material stuff actually. There is true understanding that a Jivatma has come back to the home, never to go back again. The rejoicement of each and every one of associates of all the people who are present in the spiritual world is actually such a happy event. This is how actually we should be aspiring, that to go back to our home. So of course, then she said, Lord Krishna said that they will visit you, but you don't open the door. The wives of the Devas arrived actually at the home and they called out, we want to come and open you. Then the lady responded, no, you please tell me the merit of observing this Satyala Ekadashi. Only then I will open the door. Then one of the wives beautifully described the glories of following this Satyala Ekadashi and what is the benefit. So finally she opened the door. She saw that there was no celestial being, there was no Devata, there was no Devata's wife, there is no Nagapatni, no one, just an ordinary being. So what this understands is actually why Lord Krishna told this to her this way is, if we sometimes may want to get an instruction from someone else, and sometimes we get tested by our karma. This is why actually the way the elevation happens is Adhyatmika Klesha, Adi Bhautika Klesha and Adi Devika Klesha. In a material universe also, yes, by prarabdha karma we may get reaction from other people. But if we are able to be sthita prajna, means able to control our mind, our voice, our thought, then spiritual advancement is faster. Even when chanting Krishna's name, when we chant the Harinamam, every day, our mind, we have to make sure that we actually focus on Lord Krishna's lotus feet. We focus on his attributes. We don't focus on other things. We don't focus for achieving desire for other things. Like one of the example beautifully, right? Lord Krishna's features are infinite. So one of the beautiful explanation is given is Lavanya Varshini Lalade Tada Ghanabhe Bibrat Tadiguna Visheshami Vorda Pundram Vishwasya Nirjapte Tamasa Vritasya Manye Vibhayasi Mangalika Pradipam. So if we see Lord Krishna's beautiful Shyamam, his complexion, is the darsha saubhagyam of his lustrous tilakam. So imagine how it is. Lord Krishna's tilakam is like a radiant light. You know, when sometimes when the cloud is dark and the sun jumps out of it, this is a description which acharyas have given, that how the radiant tilakam of Lord Sri Krishna looks like a dark blue rain clouds. And you know what happens? The lightning doesn't last forever. It just comes and goes. But we are in awe. This is how one should aspire actually when we look at Lord Krishna's tilakam. How beauty it is. Right? Our eyes, Premanjuna Bhakti Vilochanena, we say that only which tinged. But when we chant, we should look at attributes. We should meditate upon Lord Krishna. We should meditate on his holy name. And we should meditate. This is a description given of how the forehead of the Lord is, how his tilakam is actually. And this will remove the dark clouds of ajnanam. Why? Because only by chanting his name, when we follow things like fasting on Ekadashi or remembering Lord Krishna, this is how actually it comes. Similarly, we can see that, the sacredness of this beautiful tilakam of Lord is described as Bhakta Janan Upari Udharita Ithi Urdhavasyaranya Sochita Shaktim. It is not like the beautiful, like the bright lightning, but it is also to signal the superior gati reserved for the Bhakta Ganans. Why? Because Urdhva Pindram, as we wear, leads its wearers to achieve Urdhva Gati. Urdhva Gati means the supreme destination to go to Goloka actually. Why? Because generally we will know that when we wear tilakam, in Indian culture, in Vedic Sanatana culture, you will see women at least wear tilakam. But men also wear. Why? Because after all, he is husband of everyone, not just of woman. He is actually husband of the whole universe. Lord Krishna is actually husband of each and every living entity. That is as we say, he is the supreme father. So this is the understanding one should know, that Urdhva Pundram is making sure that we are not, nowadays people will wear different stand. When you go to an office, we have a badge. This is our badge actually, right? That we are his surrendered servants actually. And this is why Lord Krishna always wears, in every avataram you will see, Lord is always adorned with his different paraphernalia, his different pastimes, right? We see this. Similarly, so finally the lady achieves by following Satyala Ekadashi, all her spiritual, the abode and home is actually filled again with foodstuffs. So this is the benefit of following Satyala Ekadashi. So see, there are different gunams of Sri Krishna, right? So we say Dhairyam, Parakrama, Satyakama, Krititvata, Kritagnata and Maharanava, right? So Dhairyam is actually to destroy the enemies. Not just enemies which are physical. Actually, initial enemies are all coming for us by our mind. Why? Because this Adhyatmika Klesha, our mind gets, as Prabhupada writes in the work, but we may buy an object, it may go away, it may get destroyed. So this is the klesham we feel actually in today's world. We see how that there are two kinds of leelas Bhagavan always executes. One is Nitya Leela, Nitya Vibhuti and Leela Vibhuti. So we see that Lord Krishna performs all these basic pastimes in today's world when he comes as avataram. Even today also he is performing these leelas in Vrindavana or in other dhamas. How can we understand to make sure? That's why Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that the meditation of Lord Krishna's name and not having anartha nivritti by the mind will actually make sure we purify. And we should be conscious to make sure we don't accumulate these kind of unnecessary karmas. Sometimes, yes, when we live in a material universe, you will interact with others and some things are bound to happen, either due to past or prarabdha karma. But at the same point, you have to reduce your spiritual footprint karma by not making sure by word, thought, or action we do not actually go and give misery to other people. This is also important. If we look at actually even Lord Krishna, in why this aspect of adhyatmika, adi bhautika, adi deivika karma comes. So one of the important is, Lord Krishna is described as swapana swashaso vyapi naika atma naika karma krit vatsaro vatsalo vatsi ratna garbho dhaneshwaraha. So swapana means he who lulls people into sleep. So we can know in the Kurma avataram, Mohini Murti came, right? And her job was to actually put the asuras into sleep. So what we should also take from this, that the swapati nidra payati prayakale sarvam prakirtivarti swapanaha. So in pralaya, all the jivatmas are put to sleep. But he himself is awake. So he never sleeps. And why he doesn't sleep? Because he cares for all of us. That is why he says, Paritranaya sadhunam, I keep taking incarnation, I come here to deliver everyone, whether it's through his medium directly, his avataram, or his associates come actually. This is the swapanatva guna of Bhagavan actually, that he creates everything again. So similarly, we can say that Naham prakrisha sarvasya yoga maya samvritha mudoyam nabhijanati. So it is not that all incarnations of Bhagavan are only for, though they are for paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya jadushkunatam, it is also basically he is there to provide for everyone else. And this is why we must take aspiration from, even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there, he also followed certain things, by not certain aspects of being a Brahmana and following certain Vedic customs and traditions. Why it is important? Because by not doing this, you also incur karma, actually speaking. Right? For example, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, though he is Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, where common man comes and follows, other people will look. So even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father passed away, he went to Gaya, he did all the Vedic oblations when his father passed away to the Pitrus, he did all this. Not because he is required to do, because only by setting these standards which are important. Right? This is very important, actually speaking. Other beautiful way which we say about Lord Krishna's name is Naika Karma Krita Namaha. So why when Krishna took the avataram as Kurma, so churning the ocean is actually Amritam. And what is Amritam? For us it is the holy name of the Lord. The churning of the ocean is described as all the Amritam. And though for Devatas he gave the Amritam, for us we are not looking for that. Our Amritam is in the glories of chanting Lord Krishna's name, remembering his pastimes, supporting the mountain. So Lord Krishna is always there to support, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that he is based like a string, on the pearls, overcoming and distributing this love affection of God. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. So we should take example that Lord Krishna comes to provide for us whenever required, but it is also important for us to make sure and realize that our own mind, body, intelligence, we must also utilize to make sure we don't actually incur other karma. When we know some place is undesirable, we should not go. When we get a chance to hear about Lord Krishna's beauty, to come here, then we should actually come to the temple or in home, whatever you can do, patram pushpam phayam. you should actually offer to Lord Krishna. So this is how we should do. So in this whole actually chapter, the ending of the chapter, we can see that actually Chitraketu Maharaj, he understands the whole aspect of, his loss of his son. But Angirasam and Narada explained to him that these are all suffering caused due to attachment. In the practical sense, we all are born in a particular place or in a family due to our prarabdha karma. But how we can make sure that we can continue doing our duty and still keep Krishna at the center of our life is the most important thing. So bodily conception is there. You have to maintain yourself. You may work, you may do your profession, whatever you have to do. But do it as an offering to Lord Sri Krishna. So this is the end of today's chapter and shlokam. So I will stop here. And one summary I know as part of this whole, we can see that is it to be said that without suffering one cannot advance? Answer is, it is not without suffering. Because of our own desire for lauding material universe, we get suffering. And only when Lord Krishna says, Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mam, that when surrenders to Lord Krishna and realize there is no other way, then that realization comes. So I will end today's class. If there are any comments or questions, I'll be free to answer. I guess that is very good if there are no questions. Okay. Vrindraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.